say thank you to all of you, to every single one of you, for all of your contributions, for everything that you have created here today, for bringing us your intelligence and your artistry and your enthusiasm and your spirit of collaboration. Thank you so much, and this is exactly how a movement and community can be sustained and created. This has been just so rewarding. This conference was everything, and is everything that I could have hoped for and beyond. And I feel transformed by everything I've encountered here. I hope you do. There are going to be a lot of efforts underway post-conference to keep the conversation going through publications, documentation, archive efforts, Q&A, and maybe the opportunities in the future to organize again and get together again. So we're not done yet, but I just wanted to let you know that that's on my mind and on the minds of others, and invite you to contribute ideas. I'll be sending an email out to all conference participants later at the end of the week with more information on those efforts. But in the meantime, what an amazing conference, an amazing group of events and group of individuals. Thank you all so much. So let's just give a round of applause to all of us. It is my pleasure to be introducing tonight's readers and performers. We are going to be hearing poetry and other creative literary arts from Gustavo A. Schwartz, Madhur Anand, Ed Roberson, and Ray Armantrout. Gustavo Ariel Schwartz is a physicist and writer of essays and fictions that cross borders and explore the relationships among art, science, literature, and humanities. He combines his scientific research at the Material Physics Center in San Sebastian, Spain, with his role as the founder and director of the Mestizajes program at the Donostia International Physics Center, whose purpose is to explore the relations among science, literature, and art, and their reciprocal influences and the emergence of common ideas. He received his PhD in physics from the University of Buenos Aires in Argentina. Since 2008, he has been a tenured scientist at the National Spanish Research Council. He is working in the development of a new experimental approach to measuring the dielectric response at the nanoscale, and collaborates with the Goodyear Innovation Center in Luxembourg in the characterization and development of new polymer composites. He has published more than 50 scientific articles and the short story collection The Other Side. He's co-authored the theater play The Interview, among many other very innovative projects that are combining the arts and the sciences and literature. He recently co-edited the collective work Nodos, Nodes, in which nearly 90 scientists, writers, artists, and scholars from all over the world explore transdisciplinary knowledge. I had the great pleasure of meeting Gustavo at the Donostia International Physics Center in 2016 after my trip to CERN, where I did a talk, and he was just such a wonderful host, invited me to participate in Nodos. It was an extraordinary experience trying to write on complexity and chaos, which is what he assigned me. And it is just my real pleasure to welcome him here at Wake Forest at the 2019 Ronaldo Conference. Please join me in welcoming Gustavo Schwartz.
Amy, for the introduction. As you can, is slowly vanishing today and since a couple of days ago. So I hope it will last at least for more 15 minutes. I hope so. I will try to do my very best. I am going to read part of the theater play, The Interview, Yesterday morning I talked about the making of, about the creative process. Now it's time to move into the plot of the play. The play aims to bring the most human side of science into the stage, and as Amy said, has been jointly written by Luis Echenique, a writer from San Sebastian, and myself in the frame of the Mestizajes program. The play is staged as an encounter between prestigious scientists at the peak of his career and as an exasperating scientific journalist. However, as the play progresses, a second story emerges in which the character's identity will take on new features and the relationship between them will acquire an unforeseen complexity. I will read a short fragment of the play in which this complexity starts appearing. I have prepared two different voices, one for each of the characters. I'm afraid that tonight I have only one voice, but I am sure that you will manage who is talking at each time. So both characters are in a meeting in the office of the senior scientist. Okay, they are in the middle of the discussion, and I will start reading what the young character tells to the other character. Okay, I will start at that point. A mirage was what you put in front of me. You told me loads of things, far too many. I listened to you and, like a fool, I believed them. I believed everything. And inside of me I was climbing up the walls of a huge skyscraper, believing I was some sort of Heisenberg. What madness! How pathetic! You let me climb to the top to make sure the fall would be my end. Don't be so dramatic. It was only about going a bit slower, allowing your research to mature. All you needed was some time to consolidate your ideas, which were fine, and our project. You would have never fallen while staying here with me. I was here, and during all the time you spent in that institute, how long was it? 2 years? 3? During all those years, I never lost hope you would realize what you had here. I wanted you to appreciate it and to choose to come back. I waited for you to come back all this time. Why didn't you? This door was never closed to you, and you knew it. I know you knew it, because I made sure someone told you. Why didn't you come back? I did come back. I came back one night. At night? I can't remember exactly what time it was when I arrived, but I waited outside for a long time, wandering around the part of the park that was farthest away until it got dark. I hadn't been here for 2 years, and yet I recognized everything. It was all exactly the same. The trees so tall, so close together, and so leafy, they hide what's on the other side. The other side is unavoidable. Even if you can't see, it will come to you. There had to be something, I was sure. I came in using the key to open the door downstairs. I had kept it all this time. I have still got it. I went up the stairs to the first floor to keep the note down as much as possible. Although I figured out by that time there would be no one left in the building. I couldn't bump into anyone. Everyone would recognize me. I thought about that until I reached my old office door. It was very hot. I wiped the sweat off my face with a tissue, and then used this to turn the door handle. I did it simply because I had the tissue in my hand. But then I began to think about the fingerprints, about the traces of mine that had been probably erased. I thought there must be new people who didn't know me, and someone else must have taken over my office. But the door wasn't locked. I walked in. The light coming from outside gave the air a yellow, uncertain tinge, like in pictures from an old comic book. There were a few sheets of papers on the desk, but it was clear nobody was using it. Were you pleased to see it had been given to anyone else? I sat down at the desk. I felt a kind of profound tiredness, like an intense desire to sleep, to put my head down on the table and sleep. I didn't want anyone to be given your office until you began to work for that woman, and it became clear that you were going to change your life, at least for a while. I heard the sound of a door. I stood quite still for a while, and then I came up here. I knew you were at the conference in Toronto, and anyway I knew you never locked your door. In here? You walk in here? There had to be something. I was sure. What? Something. What? Evidence. The evidence had to be here. Those calculations on spin correlation functions you wouldn't let me publish. I sat on the floor and I took my shoes off. I meant to look everywhere, in every nook and cranny. I was sure you wanted all those calculations for yourself, for your research work on superconductivity. I was sure. That's why you didn't want my article to be published. You wanted to publish them yourself. What? You wanted to publish your calculations? Are you mad? How could you believe such a thing? You don't realize the gap this opens up between us. Me stealing your ideas. It is so inconceivable, so offensive that you believe I was capable of doing such a thing. It makes me doubt everything now, reconsider it all. I knew this office by heart, and yet I felt as if I was lost. I had the feeling you had moved things around, although everything looked exactly the same. It was really hot. I opened the window, but there was no breeze. And then what? I didn't think you had distanced yourself so much from me. I looked everywhere, over and over again. I hurt my foot. I was barefoot, you see, like a thief. I was going to grow in here. I don't know what scientific heights I was going to reach. I had believed it, and there I was, searching everywhere, like a thief, yes. I searched everywhere, but I found nothing. And in the end, I went to the drawer on the desk. I pulled it out. After distancing yourself so much from me, is it still possible to come back? I pulled all the papers out and placed them next to each other on the desk. I don't know how long I sat there reading them, searching in that poor light. How crazy, how blind. But I mean, both of us, me too. Because I should have understood that despite your talent, your brilliant ideas, you were just a child, still a child, much more vulnerable than the way you look and the self-confidence you show could ever suggest. I found nothing. Of course you didn't. I tidied up the papers and I tried to leave everything the way it was, untouched. You didn't walk in here looking for evidence that you knew didn't exist. You came to mark your distance from me, your distrust towards me, and to sell your suicide as a scientist too. Can you imagine what would have happened if you had been discovered trespassing in my office? If it had been known you had broken into my office to look through my files? I was obsessed for a long time. I thought that I had left something behind, something that would incriminate me. I even dreamed about it a few times. That's what you came to do, to cut yourself loose from your career and from me. Now I understand why you signed it for that journal. I had come to this institute to grow, to work without limits. I was going to become some kind of Heisenberg, and there I was on the floor, teeny, hidden away, like a thief. And now, how can you come back from somewhere so far away? What can I do to bring you back from so far away? What could I tell you? I went down in the lift despite the noise it made. It seemed more distant. I can offer you the chance to leave all that behind and face a completely new situation. Can you imagine what it would mean to understand something nobody ever understood before? Let me alone. Can you imagine how you could feel, or even everything you could reconsider? Leave me alone. I'm all right. I will. But let me tell you something too. The fact that you quit your scientific career has nothing to do with me. You quit because you had reached a deep end. Not just because of that appalling institute that you went to work at, but also, of course, because of what you have just confessed to me. But I will admit something too. I didn't realize how much that article meant to you, but I was quite clear about it. Possible. But I thought that after spending some time working somewhere else, you would... Somewhere else? You didn't move a finger to get me admitted to another institute. On the contrary. Not on the contrary. I didn't do anything to help you get admitted anywhere else. That's true. But I did nothing to prevent it either. You made several phone calls, admit it. I didn't want you to leave. But there's something else, I must admit. Something much deeper, which also leaves me in some way barefoot, just like you were a moment ago. Just listen to what I have got to say. And I will stop here. Just a comment. Unfortunately, the book is not here. It's not available here. But if someone is interested in reading it completely or in some other details, just contact me, and I will manage how to provide you with a copy of the book. Okay.
Gustavo. It is my pleasure to introduce our next reader, Madhur Anand. Her debut book of poems, A New Index for Predicting Catastrophes, published by McClelland and Stewart and Penguin Random House Canada in 2015, was published to international acclaim. In every measure a triumph, Publishers Weekly said in their starred review. The book was listed by a Canadian broadcasting agency as one of 10 all-time trailblazing poetry collections to read for its blending of art and science. Anand has also published critical and scholarly work in eco-poetics, as an editor, and as a literary reviewer. She is a full professor of ecology and sustainability at the University of Guelph in Canada. As a scientist, she has co-authored over 100 peer-reviewed scientific papers and the textbook Climate Change Biology. Her internationally funded and award-winning research program spans the fields of human ecological modeling, complex systems, conservation ecology, and sustainability science, and she has contributed work to journals such as Science and many, many more. She's held 2 prestigious Canada Research Chairs among many honors. She served as director of the Waterloo Institute for Complexity and Innovation from 2015 to 2018, and currently serves as associate editor for the interdisciplinary journal Ecosphere. Please join me in a warm welcome for Madhur and Anand.
What we don't see in light's dark reactions. The rejection of reds, a gap of blues, chlorophyll absorbing necessary wavelengths, the public good of peacocks, feather primordia morphogenesis behind the wheel, function and shine of an evening roach, butterfly, shiver and heat, sky-scraping violet, Brazilian soccer shirts and cachaça on ice, bird of paradise peering through closed canopy, flowers like heliconia mistaken for flight, fancy, economy, monkeys and mycorrhiza playing non-zero sum games, giant sea pods like maracas, chandeliers dimmed, everything instrumental, quiet breaths exchanged by the carbon pool. Oranges crushed, too easily spent, green going underground. Tropical bonds, shape-shifting mouths, nameless and innumerable, moving iron-rich soil, liberating minerals and death. Liana hanging, black, green, red, a parting of leaves, something winged, ringed, molecules, sugar from light. Cantarellus. We were boring jack pines, storing their cores in plastic drinking straws. It had been raining. I'm no naturalist. I don't know birds or bark, but once grabbed indifference by the neck, such that when I saw them, creamy orange against first gray, then green, then brown, I was 95% sure. I brushed aside soil, lichen, moss, and placed them into yellow hard hats. Later, we would discern which tree rings were false. Of greater concern was my own mortality, and mushrooms, I decided, were true. Especially in a time. Wild populations recognize that the linearity, the relative rareness, the major museums, or any area which is known, is a surrogate for proximity. Stream beetles, Galapagos finches, and Israeli passerine birds are transformed into an index of limited information. Elytral lengths, slope of the regression, and mid-latitude precipitation unravel the anomalies. A prolonged change is also under scrutiny. That's a found poem from the article Rapid Morphological Change in Stream Beetle Museum Specimens Correlates with Climate Change, published in the journal Ecological Entomology. Cosmos bipinatus. Imminent is always less than desirable. Ice, white, boldly bordered, splashed or stippled. We've been letting the ivy go for how long? Nostalgia for the turn of a century, nest at the top of a TV antenna tower, which could be integral, could be squirrels. 4 parts water to 1 part sugar feeds the hum. Now we curtain, now we dream of iron blackbirds. Place seeds like black clipped fingernails from last year's packet of Cosmos Candy Stripe in egg cartons reclaimed from the blue blocks. A dozen divided by 4, 6, 12, occasionally a pure crimson bloom may appear. That just made me smile because I tell people that like climate change is everything change, and I said everything's in my book, everything. Name me one thing, and I was telling this to somebody the other day here. Name one thing, and it's probably in my book. And they said, "Is garbage in your book?" Garbage, and yeah, it is actually recycling. Okay, I'll read another couple of poems from this book and then move on. Betula Papyrifera. Something native, sequenced, compiled, dying to be recalled. White encoded with black dots and vascular dashes, from the rented cottage on Ahmed Lake to plastic bags in our hatchback. I stole a branch the length of 2 phone books, gorgeous and genuine against the living room pine shelves, its bark hospitable to pale crustose lichen and first-century Buddhists writing down how to survive. Await the ringtones of light and moisture, length inversely proportional to the frequency of occurrence, on-off clicks directly understood. Okay, the simplest significant virus. That wishbone you've pulled from my pharynx when I was 3. I type polio to a world that barely contains you. I discover the soccer ball symmetry of the particle, its short and simple genome. Then I type in your common name, find a photo of handsome you in dark suit, sitting at desk, copyright status unknown. It's true, our family name means joy, and I've spread it, an invasion populating the middle names and Saturday morning fields of my own 2 children, now 3. It's about 6 years old, 5 years old. There's no escaping it. That and the resemblance of my temper, the bridge of my nose to yours. Sometimes I think the sweet like honey joy that is my full name, my trophy-laden life, will sum up to the atrophied muscle of your little boy leg, but it won't equate. And then one more from this book, and we'll see what we have time for. This is entitled Hill Country, Old Mercedes, and Parturition. There's a new index for predicting catastrophes. It's the decreasing rate of recovery from small perturbations. The critical slowing down before reaching a tipping point. Like taking a picture when I leave out the wire fence and then move in for a close-up of the brightest cow standing right behind it. I'm taught she's been bred for her disease resistance, tolerance to heat, and outstanding maternal instincts. I look for the 3/8 Brahmin, traces of shared ancestry. It's autumn. I've flown to Texas to meet my future father-in-law. The vistas are simple and golden. But then this brown cow appears, stands too still, becomes time, consuming. That's when I see signs. She's just given birth. Okay, I'll read you 2 two new poems. I have to say that after this book was published, I didn't write for a long time, and I didn't read poetry for a long time as well. It took me quite a while to find my way back in. And but one thing I thought, I tried all these tricks, and one thing I tried was, I kind of became obsessed with this one person. His name is Octavian Hume. He was a 19th century British civil servant in India. This is way, during colonial times. And he, along with many people of that time of a certain stature, was very much into herding and hunting and things like that. And so he was known for quite a lot of amazing political things, but he's also the person behind all of our modern knowledge of Indian birds, because he was a naturalist and collected thousands and thousands of bird skins and eggs and nests while he served in India. And so he had this massive, massive collection. And so he started to write notes. He had notes. He started his own scientific journal called Stray Feathers, and he published notes there. And he had a vast network of collectors all across India. And the story goes is that he wrote his notes. He wanted to write a big treatise on the birds of India, and he made all these notes on foolscap paper. And then his servant stole his notes and sold them for waste paper. And then he basically gave up all his gave up birds completely after that. And then returned to England and donated what remained of his collections. So he, what was left behind were some notes on just the eggs and nests. So there was a big volume that I discovered that is just it's entitled "The Nests and Eggs of Indian Birds." I thought, oh, this is wonderful. This is my next book project. This is it. I found what I'm going to do. All the metaphors. But, and I read, so I got the book, and it's a 19th century book. It reads kind of like a field guide, but if you can imagine, like a bird guide, but it doesn't actually say anything about the birds. It only describes the nests and eggs. But it's organized by species. Very much like any other scientific guide, and it's just a very bizarre text, esoteric, and it's written by many different authors, because each author, he would just put in verbatim the collector's notes on each of the observations as they sent them in to his collection. I started to read, I think this is going to be more of a story than a poem. I started to read that volume 1, like from front page. I just got obsessed with it. I read it like as though some people might read the Bible. I just kind of read it religiously, like almost stubbornly. And then I went to see, and then his egg collection survived. None of his skins they were all destroyed in a fire in India. But his eggs, and none of the nests survived, but his egg collection, there's thousands and thousands of eggs in the Natural History Museum of London, in Train, which is this rural part of, it's northwest of London. So I went there again. I thought, I'm going to go look at these eggs, and I had to go through this whole security procedure and all this thing, because it's a research collection, so you have to have some special reason to look at these eggs. And I told them I was going to write poems, and they wanted to know exactly what I was going to do, and I couldn't say. All to say that I didn't end up writing really anything about Hume's eggs, but I do have 2 poems here about eggs. And I ended up also, so adjacent to the Trained Museum, to the research collection, and it's an amazing, amazing collection. There is a museum open to the public, which is the Rothschild Museum. I don't know if any of you know of it. Rothschild, it was Lionel Walter, second Baron Rothschild. His parents asked him one day what he wanted for his birthday, and he said, I want a museum, and I'm going to put one of every creature I collect in it, and he did. So it's also an incredible other weird museum. So here is my poem. Let's see where I'm at with time. Yeah. Visiting the Rothschild collection train. We leave the inn at Aylesbury, outskirts of the Bucks, to get some air, concrete, hedgerow, cornfield. A yellow arrow divides the public from the private. Don't step on the cracks. A kissing gate's hinge geometry keeps out ruminant A, allows in ruminant B with its artificial intelligence. Its shiny ear, mouth, silk, tassel, gene, deep learning, embossed hierarchy, don't touch the crops. My 3 children run ahead, the lag between us becomes the cassowary, the dodo. They can't see the eggshell at their feet. Please forgive me that I want my life to be that grotesque museum with one of everything. To navigate this world when simulation outpaces understanding. To request the local fare and be told they're out of ducks. Thank you.
It's my pleasure to introduce Ed Roberson. Born and raised in Pittsburgh, Ed Roberson studied painting in his youth and was educated at the University of Pittsburgh. His extensive travels and background in science inform his work, which is also influenced by the spirituals, by the blues, and by visual art, such as the mixed media collages of Romare Bearden. Poet and critic Michael Palmer has called Roberson, quote, one of the most deeply innovative and critically acute voices of our time. Roberson is the author of numerous books of poetry, including To See the Earth Before the End of the World, The New Wing of the Labyrinth, City Eclogue, Atmospheric Conditions, which was chosen by Nathaniel Mackey for the National Poetry Series, Just In, Word of Navigational Change, New and Selected Work, and Voices Cast Out to Talk Us In, which won the Iowa Poetry Prize. Words and phrases in Roberson's experimental poetry actively resist parsing, using instead what Mackey has called, quote, double-jointed syntax to explore and blend themes of race, history, and culture. Roberson's many honors include the Ruth Lilly Poetry Prize in 2016, the Lilla Wallace Writers Award, the Poetry Society of America's Shelley Award, and the 2006 Penn Award for Poetry. He lives in Chicago, where he has taught at the University of Chicago, Columbia College, and Northwestern University. Please join me in welcoming Ed Roberson.
Thank you for coming, thanking me for this conference. Back in the 60s, I was doing field work in Alaska, going up and down the Kenai Peninsula. I used to have to pass the Portage Glacier regularly. And at that time, the glacier is north of Anchorage. At that time, you could see the glacier from the highway. You come up from Anchorage, go over the top of the Cook Inlet, and you'd see the glacier from that high point, and you'd be able to look up at the glacier, and you'd be able to look backwards at the, I guess it was the inlet, Cook Inlet that the glacier had created. One November, I was reading the New York Times, and it said that you had to ride 2 miles from the highway to see the glacier. It had melted that much. That kind of freaked me out. To be able to say in 1960, I could see the glacier and see its handiwork, and then 40 years later, if I went back, I couldn't see the glacier. I could see the handiwork, but the disappearance of the glacier was much shorter than the handiwork of what it had created. To see the Earth before the end of the world. People are grabbing at the chance to see the Earth before the end of the world. The world's death, piece by piece, each longer than we. Some endings of the world overlap our lived time, skidding for generations to the crash scene of species extinction. The 5 minutes it takes for the plane to fail. The mile ago it takes to stop the train. The small bay to coast the liner into the ground. The line of title to a nation until the land dies, the continent uninhabitable. That very subtlety of time between large and small. Media note. People are chasing glaciers in retreat up their valleys, and the speed, watched ice was speed made invisible. Now it's days and a few feet further away, a subtle collapse of time between large and our small human extinction. If I have a table at this event, mine bears an ice sculpture. Of whatever loss it is, it lasts as long as ice. As ice does until it disappears into its polar white and melts, and the ground beneath it into vapor, into air. All that once chased us, and we chased to a balance, chasing back, tooth for spear, knife for claw, locks us in this grip. We just now see our own lives taking them out. Hunting the bear, we hunt the glacier. With the changes come of that choice. I was asked to contribute to, after that poem was published, I was asked to contribute to an anthology that the title of the anthology was The End of the World Anthologies. But the interesting thing about the anthology was they asked us they wanted the contributors to answer a series of questions. And the first question was, what has changed since we became aware of the climate change? My feeling was immediate. Even looking out the window changed. We used to look out the window for relaxation, but that's changed. Ask what has changed. Even staring out the window has changed. The private peak above it all brought down with the erosion of the poise between the viewable and the mused unseen. Dissolution, so nearly changeless as not to appear, is shifting the sands inside from what we watched. No more the steady stage, The self-dramatic days play out on outside. The silent portent now allowed alert to things changing, the light of darkness. Not normal individual mortality, but as if the epical heartbeat of larger elements that seize the air had mutated, become chimera, grown wing, and routed ancestral time. Even staring out the window, the timeless is gone. We see coming in the daily migration of the local geese to the lake at evening, the cities pull up and move in unlike consternation towards and away from water that had been so common to gaze out on, to live by, easy to not live according to. And now that seas are adding themselves into the land, horizons look ominously larger. They are even out of them, faster and clearer. Now we see the view is turned on us to frame human agency, become transparent, light as air, before the picture blackens as a consequence of our seeing too much of it as only for us to use and then use up. The eye is not filled with seeing, with only seeing, but with understanding the sight. Sometimes I ask, where do the poems come from? I'm trying to set the stop clock. Can't do it. Where do the poems come from? The title of this poem as well. The physics at the location of the poem. The sidewalk below is plowed, a blurred gray line, no snow. That pale pedestrian has fallen on. The crows leave the noise they're famous for without bothering to even put in an appearance, the absences that our winter no longer seem mentionable. And if this were brought up to establish time and place, forget it. There's only a mood I make of things that in themselves have no meaning at all. Like moving through the wave of congested street and suddenly following the point of a gray coat that carries itself as now, a load that once was weightless, word by word, finding its say into and through this sentence it must serve, like all voice, become itself a gray coat that has the walking rhythm worn by men of middle age. How does it follow I am older relative to that image? Connection making family of maybe too much thinking, except I make it so, And what is meaning but a noise of that work? After the crow song has flown, an unnamed owl no one has ever seen except as a phenomenon of silence lands on a limb. The limb is black, is solid flesh. The tree that so clearly grows out of is not of any ground, but of a possibility the observation of opens a world, attention to the chance turns on. The leading explanation sometimes disappears. Epicycles, strange loop, and analemma dances in the sky are not the wind. No one's breath, just rotation shot from Earth's eccentric spot, not a map, not the directions home nor weather. Figures that the retrograde motions of the planets point out in dots from days along the overtaking orbits for us to follow, hang like necklaces of beads thrown in the sky from floats in a New Orleans parade. Or parallel roller coasters on that curve where the inside train comes screaming past the one on the wider outside turn, one that was ahead. The face aboard goes backwards, moving forward, loop behind, arms in the air. The lead disappears into a dip. There are patterns our movement makes you see, not made by the object observed. Things don't make that turn you saw. Events take. Something else is where you thought you were, told me. I'm going to read a series of a series of 4 poems. These are poems. These are all sonnets. They're sonnet. The 3 poems are sonnet sequences. The first sequence is 7 sonnets. The second sequence is 5 sonnets, and the last sequence is 3 sonnets. And they're roughly in conversation with Fred Milton. The sonnets, at this point, there are a couple of sequences before, but the sonnets at this point are talking about watching things, just keeping your eyes open and watching things. And I live on the 15th floor, and I'm always watching what's going on in the street. And I noticed one day that there was one woman who parked her car in the same spot all the time. And she somehow made it all the time. It's a beautiful image of regularity, I guess. I'm not sure what it is, but anyhow, it's the watch. The Corona sonnets. The cars are always shifting in their park along the curb from this window, but one stays days long in its same spot. When it does move, it seems to always get back its place under the 4th tree down from the corner. Someone's arc is short, enough to pull him into the obsessive, or, as a neighbor says, another is possessive. But who is this to say? Who from the floors above patterns his fellows on board? His pencils into descending lengths on his desk. What is OCD, or what an artistic interest in emerging patterns of return, like seasons? Who is an ancient timer of corn? Or the sudden feel in the middle of things, they'll be there. The kids home from school, the storms. Where does that knowing spring out of you, on you, that stops one spool due its next in the weave, without the motif meaning itself through some peak in the thread, some opening into a different relief, that suddenly feel that change already happened is ahead. A pattern. You feel its hand move as a view. Something in it, not the same. A touch. Often earlier read, not seen at all, but enough here. You respond as if already arrived. Fruit like a blossom or a collapse building up. Listen. Listen. The path to penetrate a siege is through the besieged means of survival, their dreams. What kept them going? What were those Trojans into that kept them holding out against invasion? What must have felt something, they must have felt something strong, carrying them through the assaults, the deprivation, the stand that is the escape. What object could they use talisman to see this, that we could make to make them stop, to pick it up long enough for us to get in, to get our feet ahead of their dreams and trick it? The tricksters tonight thought this about us. Fred Moten is only translating Laocoon, But we know what not listening to brought on. The snakes risen out of the ocean. The wise and Fred are just saying, you are wearing your mind. You are wasting your mind. You are deciding between the snakes and the sea when it is the Greeks at the gates. And they are all the same thing. Don't stop to pick up on that golden ship when it is the wooden, full of enemy Greeks. Keep your mind open and create to respond to the tricks Malcolm told you he was full of. Don't let us lead ourselves to open the gates to what has been used of ourself to destroy us. Recognize the hate. Why do people have to white out Trump from the White House? This is not our mistake. This is their mistake, not ours. We will help, but we didn't do this. This is not what our mistake looks like. We don't look like that, do we? This is there, but we will help, but we didn't do this. Unless just being here has that power. When they're just being here after the Civil War, sabotaging Reconstruction back into their favor instead of pitching in, created a nation that lost everything to be gained from that conflict. This going on is a war of coming home from that. The war not in the streets, not in the courts, but the conscience, the dreams, the retribution made of ourselves. Fred's heads are saying, we don't want to be people against other people or their mistake you can make of yourself who have that done to you. But we can't not be not these people who have made us this. We are all of us. How can we accept this? Is where who all of us is here are the great gates themselves. Humans have to swing open into their pockets. How odd it must have been to see a horse after days in the sun and no water burst into dying men. The empty pockets of your heart could not but open to feed. What you did not have, feed what you did not have, and feed it by your own hand. Our own hand, killer and deliverer, in that instant, acknowledged, taken, and held. Control of becoming way. We, from that point, live. We will see. We will see. The rocks, the same molecules, same laws, receiving the same gravitational information, and no response. The ultimate contemplative, the trees dancing. Or will watching find us never to find our way home, except as a different, more difficult other story. Wallpaper. The poems are like a community talking back to Fred. This is another voice in the community. It's just there. We can't even call it racism. It's what it is to live with, the wallpaper. And you know what Wilde in his dying days said? It's awful. Either it goes or I go. Then he died. You could just as easily on my street, under the authority of this country, die. The law functions as fastly and often as changing underwear is necessary, blind as to what drawers it comes out of. Human shit is always trying to get into your panties. Ask any woman, ask any nigger. I know I'm not the first person to announce. Everybody got an agenda now. Everybody got that, wait a minute, you can't do that to me in that self. Because it got so bad, everybody got it. So bad, we can't even say its name. It's down to the letter N of the law. That whale had spoken in the chambers of the cloud houses and senates a century ago. When the smoke cleared, 750,000 dead. The white pale hung in the light brighter than sunshine. The incorporated cultural optimism then was to be greater than it. You could just as easily say humanity is shit. Which is, as always there, as racism is and is, black folks. Our problem is whether we can live this without whiting it out by our experience only we live. Whether we have to live up to this with ourselves. We can do what the whites do and say, it isn't my problem, I wasn't there, and live on in the advantage of what's done or not. Much will continue to avoid or escape blame. Or we could stand each other against the fragile curtain of shifting light in the sky, jump in the picture, snap and post it to preserve. We don't want to see ourselves be the have-nots who have to see. The victory hard to take is nothing. Continue war against itself, the people who are eating themselves after they are full, the obesity of not feeling any more, the slave nub that kisses the ring of a worn-off hunger, yet instead the absent lips of resistance. Kiss we want to see, kiss not the slaver, but the absence ancestral responsibility to his source. The black body of the figure larger than his. Spring. After the discussion, this is spring. The quality of our forgiveness, as of everything else between, goes both ways. The hills forgive for us the unseasonable floods with a rain of color, rushing bloom of wildflower flowing in the desert, where usually rushy dust wets our crossing. The raw hurt of the killing burns our cities. We stay, but the ashes against our rampaging return to kill back again and again. The Civil War. Dandelion of any black ground cleared in this country. Rosewood, the village, disappeared for decades of silence before it was compared to Tulsa, to Atlanta's Decatur Street and Peachtree. The money, always what they had for first to burn down every time. They tear the Booker T prophecy fulfilled down. We put it back up. This has come of our tradition. Something always new to difference, and different defiance. Growth, not forgiveness. Don't linger in the puddle. Transfer the energy into blossom. Change. We pray our blackness there is always sweet Auburn Street on our corner, hanging up tuning somewhere into where we need it, pitched in order to run. Always to come up with at our feet. The crossroad by nature against us, our feet recognize and not tripping. The Atlantic, the white south, the black fielded like cotton north against us. The Elysian-wheeled America, driven to run over us on the road anywhere. Over ourselves, we hear the music everywhere. Over my head, I hear.
much, Anand. It's my pleasure to introduce Ray Armantrout. Ray Armantrout's most recent books, Bobble, Burst, Money Shot, Just Sayin', Itself, Partly New and Selected Poems, and Entanglements, a chapbook selection of poems in conversation with physics, are published by Wesleyan University Press. In 2010, Verse won the Pulitzer Prize for Poetry and the National Book Critics Circle Award. Armantrout was the recipient of a Guggenheim Fellowship in 2007. Reviewing Partly in the London Review of Books, Stephanie Burt describes Armantrout's poems as, quote, replete with double and triple meanings. They describe chess moves and human institutions, computer code and dating rituals. Such multiple meanings which occupy the foreground of her poems lurk behind all human interactions, casting doubt on everything we intend. Her poems have appeared in Poetry, The Nation, The New Yorker, the London Review of Books, the Paris Review, Postmodern American Poetry, a Norton Anthology, the New Anthology of American Poetry, and several editions of the anthology, The Best American Poetry. Armantrout is retired from the University of California at San Diego, where she was professor of poetry and poetics. While there, she co-taught a course called Poetry for Physicists with the physicist Brian Keating. In addition to physics, Armantrout's recent work also engages with biology, ecology, and neuroscience. Please join me in a warm welcome for Ray Armantrout.
Thank you, Amy, and thank you for making all this happen. Amazing. Well, I'm going to read a few poems that do reference physics, at least in passing, and then I'm going to go on to other things. The ether. We're out past the end game where things get fuzzy, less thingy. Though in past times we practiced precision, concrete as a slot machine. But to be precise, you need to stop a moment, which turns out to be impracticable. And besides, speed is of the essence. Don't worry, of can take care of itself, and it's fine to say essence, now that it's understood to mean ether, a kind of filler made either of inattention or absorption somewhere near the Planck links. Ooh, post-its are not all they're cracked up to be. All right, never mind. Making. What made this happen, you ask, every time, as if compulsion itself were mandatory. The way light travels at the speed of light, because it must. It is in no sense essential that this crown of leaves sifted by wind, as if turning over some problem, is a gray-green, brightening into rust red at the tips, or that its equivocations fill this instant to the brim. While light has caught up to itself again, and only seems to be making time. This one's quite short. So that nothing rhymes with much, or starts to, and thinks better of it, ending with like or so, ending with as if. Virtual particles carry the current. We were just talking about fundamental particles at dinner, so this is a poem called Fundamentals. Why is it that for it to be infinitely large is terrific, but to be infinitely small is just unthinkable? The thought of a smaller bit inside each bit goes nowhere, still has symmetry going on and on about it. Then there's our model, in which the fundamentals are sound, impenetrable nubs. This one, many of my poems actually are in parts that are separated somehow. This one has a part 1 and a part 2, and I don't usually stop and read the numbers. The first part has something to do with physics, and the second part, though related, has something to do with biology. Natural histories. Since the irrational "because I said so" start, they've had their differences. Color that isn't really color, spin that isn't spin. Because attitude's best when it has no content. Ask a physicist what charge is, he'll say your question makes no sense. Word had it that if they surrendered their feckless ways and their lives with no end, if they joined up, they could get ahead, something to speak for them. The head says, I don't want to die, says, I am all alone here. And this one is called Versions. Everything is made of yes and no, or everything is made of simple particles, which are made of impulse, which is made of nothing. Yet, here are the penguin, the sloth, the skink, all forms of exaggeration. Dinner plate dahlias, profuse as if there were no end to concentric orange ruffles. A human holds that what survives her death is the direction of her gaze. Made short. Like us, the quanta spend most of their time in limbo, where time isn't theirs, and there is nothing to acquire, until nothing sends them flying, and they get realized. In impact studies, crash courses, tell-alls, in the dream, I was led to believe that memorabilia would fill the canyon, rubble I could walk across unharmed. All right, and then I decided, kind of at the last minute, to read a poem that's not directly related to science. It's got a kind of recursive structure, though, so that's, I guess you could loosely tie it. Anyway, it's called Soft Money. They're sexy because they're needy, which degrades them. They're sexy because they don't need you. They're sexy because they pretend not to need you, but they're lying, which degrades them. They're beneath you, and it's hot. They're across the border, rhymes with dancer. They don't need to understand. They're content to be, not mean, which degrades them and is sweet. They want to be the thing in itself and the thing for you. Miss thing, but can't. They want to be you, but can't. which is so hot. All right, and then I'm going to read some poems that have something, I guess, to do with our relationship with what we call nature. Say her tarot reader says she will soon have an experience of nature that will make her feel more connected than ever. Say blogs, Facebook, and Instagram have replaced poetry as ways of taking the private public. Say the way the leaves are black and unbroken on the light mesh of that window screen. Flicker. When it was them, our parents dying, the way they tried to deny what was happening, the way they were angry at the wrong things, seemed of a piece with the way they'd always been wrong about us, we thought. The way they were wrong about the world, which they saw only through the haze of their own swath of the past, so that it seemed natural for us to scoff inwardly, even at their deaths. But now it was one of us threatening to get up and walk out of the hospital on his withered legs, sheer sticks, because it was killing him. Clouds of methane rise from dumps outside our city as I drop a square of soft cheese through a slot into the bin marked landfill. Of course I feel bad about feeling good, about feeling bad about this. But as time speeds up, everything will flicker. My erasures. This started with me taking some language off of sort of humble brags on Facebook. Poets and artists humble brag. Then it goes somewhere else. My erasures were featured. I collected debris to sell as crash art, crush porn. Say goodbye to Lonesome George, the last Galapagos tortoise. I was a pushover for the laws of physics. I pictured us as two seals hauled out on a sunny rock, the roar around us, a matter of course. Chronos. We grade stories and we reconcile accounts. By night we binge on The Walking Dead. An actual electron emits and swallows its own photons now and then. Confusing exchange with use value makes the word own a hot mess. When I'm alone, I pose my question. Why is one constant always squared? I know there's an answer to that. That was supposed to be in the physics section. All right, so moving on, some new poems. This one starts with biochemistry and ends up with something about the communion ritual. They change should be the title, ceremonial. They change arsenate to arsenite and back. They pant. To capitulate is to give in. To recapitulate is to repeat in grief. Fuchsia shadow, dangling beads. This is my body, which, that has one atom between them. Take and eat. Preview. There are worldwide catastrophic storms when Earth's network of weather control satellites is sabotaged by unknown enemies. As fire rages through the western forest, Jeff Bridges snarls, "If you want a piece of me, come get me." The baby says, to the stuffed fish, then hits it against her closed mouth. "Ah, ah," she says, holding it at a distance. She opens and closes the palm of one hand. "Bye-bye," we say for her. "Bye-bye, fishy." Costumes. Man in pirate getup, slumped in a folding chair, on a corner, by the on-ramp, half seen by drivers angling for position. On the 7th day, we rested, surrounded by lakes of pig effluent, dunes of coal ash. By that time, it was late summer. Soon, we would scare ourselves a little and give thanks. Just when we were sick of our appetites, our choices, the babies came along and presented them in miniature, not as monsters, but as pets we want to feed. Speculative fiction. The idea that producing a string of nonsense syllables while pointing toward an object may cause that object to change is common in children on the verge of language. The idea that force exists only as an interaction between objects, while an object is a kind of kink in a force field. The idea that if one survives X number of years, one will live to see how things turn out, or even that things end well. In the future, we will face new problems. How will we represent the variety of human types once all the large animals are gone? As sly as a mother? As hungry as an orphan? Okay, just two more. Circles. First they told me the future would solve the present. Then they told me the present would solve the future. The present is the world, minus intention. I'm not allowed there. They know this. I begin a string of letters, picketing distance. The Cheerios in the baby's cups are full of Roundup. Circle, one girl chirps. And finally, now see. Don't worry, we have armies of showrunners writing our dreams. Ones where we're featured as skilled apparatchiks facing credible threats that appear and disappear like clockwork, leaving no apparent damage. It was all one to me, all pain, pleasure, all squirmy life, death, until your head broke the surface and looked backward and forward. Now see what you've done.
Thank you all to our readers tonight. Let's have another round of applause for them.